Breaking news from Westminster. King Charles III has taken an unprecedented step, leaving Prime Minister Keir Starmer completely speechless in Parliament. In a move no British monarch has attempted in centuries, Charles entered the chamber unannounced, bypassing protocol, and directly confronted the Prime Minister. The message was sharp, firm, and clear. History, tradition, and constitutional balance matter, and they cannot be dismissed lightly. This was more than political theater. It was a vivid reminder that power in the United Kingdom rests on checks, balances, and centuries of precedent. The spark for this historic moment came just days earlier when Starmer stood in the House of Commons and openly called for radical constitutional reforms. He argued that the monarchy must modernize or risk irrelevance, that outdated traditions could no longer dictate the direction of Britain. The statement sent shockwaves through Westminster, and Buckingham Palace responded with a carefully worded announcement. King Charles would address Parliament directly, unscripted with no interference from Downing Street. At precisely 2:15 p.m., Charles entered. No wave, no smile, just a measured stride to the dispatch box. MPs froze. Sources describe Starmer's face as drained of color, his hands gripping the bench as if bracing for impact. The king spoke, his voice calm but authoritative. Prime Minister, you have questioned the role of the crown in modern Britain. Allow me to remind this house of history. He revealed documents dating back centuries, illustrating every time Parliament had overstepped its bounds, and how British stability relied on a balance of power rather than dominance by any one branch. The echo of the folder hitting the dispatch box was symbolic, a physical reminder that tradition and oversight matter. This moment was historic not merely for its symbolism but for what it represented in practical terms. While the Prime Minister advocated for rapid constitutional change, millions of Britons faced real struggles. Elderly citizens, living in freezing homes due to reduced winter fuel payments, saw the contrast between political debate and their lived reality. Veterans, NHS workers, and pensioners watched the leadership clash, their daily hardships juxtaposed with parliamentary drama. The public could not ignore the moral tension, leadership in theory versus leadership in practice. Inside Parliament, the atmosphere was tense. Conservative MPs nodded quietly, Labour backbenches avoided eye contact, and even vocal Republican figures remained motionless. The Speaker later called it the most extraordinary session in his tenure, witnessing the power of a monarch directly reminding elected officials of their responsibilities. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was a cautionary tale for any government that assumes its authority exists without historical context. The king's intervention had immediate consequences. Starmer, normally prepared with scripted defenses, faltered under the direct scrutiny. His responses were hesitant, lacking the clarity required to reassure MPs or the public. Meanwhile, markets reacted with panic. Sterling fell against the dollar, billions were wiped from major indices, and investors began questioning Britain's political stability. The implications were far-reaching. Constitutional tensions were now intersecting with economic uncertainty, forcing both domestic and international attention on Westminster. At the same time, political fractures within Labour became visible. MPs began questioning leadership priorities, some openly criticizing Starmer's approach, highlighting the tension between ideological ambition and practical governance. Social media exploded with commentary, trending hashtags, and viral posts reflecting public concern and outrage. Citizens, witnessing these events unfold, were divided. Support for tradition clashed with demands for modernization, and political allegiances were tested in real time. This crisis also illuminated long-standing issues within governance. Reports from multiple sources suggested that warning signs had been ignored, that key advisors had raised concerns weeks in advance about the potential fallout from challenging royal authority. Leaked documents revealed that the Prime Minister's office had been briefed on the constitutional and political risks, yet the approach remained aggressive. For the public, this raised questions about judgment, accountability, and the balance between ambition and prudence. Meanwhile, opposition figures seized the moment. Speeches defending the monarchy gained traction across media platforms, drawing large crowds and generating significant public support. The narrative became clear. While Labour attacked traditional institutions, others positioned themselves as protectors of constitutional integrity. Membership and public support for opposition movements surged, reflecting a broader political realignment. Polls indicated Labour's support slipping, Conservatives holding steady, and smaller parties experiencing historic growth, particularly in regions previously dominated by Labour. Beyond political maneuvering, the King's decision underscored a deeper truth. Leadership is about responsibility, not mere ideology. Charles remained in the gallery, silently observing debates, ensuring that actions in the chamber were accountable, measured, and historically informed. This unprecedented oversight created a new layer of scrutiny, one that forced MPs to weigh their positions carefully, knowing the eyes of the monarchy were upon them. The ripple effects extended internationally. Leaders and commentators from Canada, Australia, and the United States weighed in, highlighting the significance of maintaining constitutional traditions and the potential dangers of rapid reform without historical context. Social media amplified these reactions, creating a global conversation about the intersection of monarchy, democracy, and political accountability. For the British public, the stakes were immediate. Citizens were not merely observers of a constitutional debate. They were participants in a moment of national reckoning. Reports of economic hardship, healthcare strain, and social vulnerability contrasted sharply with parliamentary theatrics, forcing a collective reflection on priorities, governance, and moral responsibility. This juxtaposition drove a deeper understanding of the consequences political decisions have on everyday lives. The King's intervention also sparked discussions in academic circles. Constitutional scholars analyzed the historical precedents invoked by Charles, noting that while monarchs rarely intervened directly, the act was rooted in centuries of legal and political tradition. The intervention reminded both politicians and the public that monarchy in the UK is not symbolic alone. It is an institution designed to safeguard continuity, stability, and balance in government. By exercising this responsibility, Charles demonstrated the enduring relevance of the crown in an era often defined by rapid change and political polarization. As Parliament reconvenes, the spotlight falls on Starmer. Will he resign before being forced out? Will Labour confront internal divisions or consolidate power in response to public scrutiny? Political analysts warn that the next sessions could redefine the British political landscape for decades, setting a precedent for how elected officials interact with monarchy. The delicate balance between tradition and reform, authority and accountability, is now under intense scrutiny. This unfolding drama has had profound social repercussions. Citizens are actively discussing governance, constitutional norms, and civic responsibility in ways not seen in decades. Town halls, online forums, and community meetings have become hubs for debate, demonstrating how a single parliamentary intervention can ripple through society. The story has become more than politics. It is a national dialogue about identity, responsibility, and the rules that bind the country together. King Charles' decisive action is also a case study in crisis management. By confronting the Prime Minister directly, he forced a pause in political maneuvering, compelling leaders to confront the consequences of their decisions. The monarchy's visibility during this episode has reminded the public that leadership is not only about policy, but also about oversight, integrity, and historical awareness. Internationally, observers have highlighted the significance of the events. Leaders in Europe and North America have expressed surprise at the boldness of Charles's approach, noting that it underscores the stability provided by constitutional monarchy in maintaining a country's long-term political equilibrium. Analysts suggest that other nations may study the UK's example as a case where tradition and modern governance intersect in a high-stakes political environment. Economic implications cannot be ignored. The initial market reaction reflected uncertainty and volatility, with the pound dipping and investor confidence shaken. Analysts warn that continued political tension could impact trade agreements, foreign investment, and public confidence. Citizens, meanwhile, continue to feel the weight of policy decisions on their daily lives, from heating costs to healthcare access, underscoring the tangible consequences of political instability. Looking ahead, the questions are clear. Can Starmer survive this crisis politically? Will Labour emerge united or fracture under pressure? How will the monarchy navigate its role in a modern democracy without overstepping its constitutional boundaries? Scholars, journalists, and citizens alike are grappling with these questions, aware that the answers may redefine British governance for a generation. This story is far from over. The King's intervention, leaving Starmer speechless, has set the stage for a complex interplay of politics, history, and public sentiment. Parliament must now reconcile ideological ambition with historical precedent, leadership with accountability, and ambition with prudence. The decisions made in the coming days will be scrutinized globally, with Britain's political, social, and economic stability hanging in the balance. King Charles's bold move is a lesson in leadership and foresight. By acting decisively, observing from above, and insisting on adherence to historical norms, he has reminded both politicians and citizens that governance is a sacred responsibility, and that the consequences of neglecting history, tradition, and oversight are profound. In conclusion, Britain stands at a pivotal crossroads. Political ambitions, constitutional norms, and societal expectations converge in an unprecedented way. Citizens are watching, politicians are maneuvering, and the monarchy has asserted its influence in a manner unseen for generations. The question now is whether the lessons will be absorbed, accountability enforced, and balance restored, or whether this moment will serve as a cautionary tale of ambition unchecked and history ignored. Stay tuned as this story continues to unfold. Westminster navigates uncharted territory. The public engages in vital national discourse, and the United Kingdom confronts the delicate balance between tradition and reform, power and responsibility, past and future. The next chapter could redefine the political and constitutional landscape for decades to come, and the eyes of the world are watching.